Greetings, I am back, everyone. I am Dr. Hasiem Ayali Kimbui. I'm a full professor at the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University in the College of Education within the Department of Educational Leadership and Counseling. And as promised, this is a third video, a third installment that I have where I am sharing my thoughts about race and intelligence. When I speak of race and intelligence here, I am referring to our ability to put forward the notion of race that helps us in positive ways to sort of encourage this. I came across a statement the other day that I want to read to you all and want and have a couple of questions as well as follow-up comments to those questions. And so the statement that I came across is perhaps for some of you all is nothing new. Um, the statement, although the particular words in this statement are used, the ideas have been expressed very similar uh, given this statement. And so let me read the statement so that you understand and that we go from here. The statement that I came across and want to use as a learning tool to sort of assist us in how we respond to the subject of race and moving forward is there is a scientific consensus. This is the statement. There is a scientific consensus that race is a social construct, not a biological reality, and has no basis in significant genetic or biological differences between humans. Now, when I heard that statement, I have a couple of questions, really. I have more questions, however, immediately, two questions um, come to mind. The first is, what use does that statement have that puts forward the notion of race that impacts us positively, right? When I read the statement and what is being claimed, that there's really no different than what is being claimed and what I've been hearing from some of the teachers and scholars and researchers um, among us. And in essence, I recognize that there is no growth. And what I mean by that, there is no growth in advancing the notion of race, whereas any perceived advancement is arguing on either side of the coin. Whereas you have some people that side with the idea race is a social construct. You have some that side with the idea that race is a biological construct. Then you have some where race is a social construct and race is a biological construct. And not that that is wrong. However, if a number of us are only arguing from the position of those claims, how are how truly are we advancing the notion of race? In which case, there is really no growth, among us, because we are arguing in defense of either side or the acceptance of both. Um, and in other cases, for those of us who claim that they are advancing the notion of race, in their narratives, their ideas and new evidences that they present are countered to learning from our past experiences. And if we listen to their narratives and what they propose or are proposing, we will be doomed to repeat our past mistakes. And I could go into another discussion about this and question many of the ideas and new evidences that I've been hearing around race. However, my purpose here is not to debate or refute those claims. Certainly, the ability to debate is one approach to assist in, challenging your thinking. However, I choose here in this moment to share information and for you to listen and question for yourself other claims you may hear. A second question that I have regarding what I mentioned earlier surrounding the statement that race is a social construct, not a biological reality, and has no basis in significant genetic or biological differences between humans, is that, and this is something that I mentioned in an earlier video, what methods were involved in the scientific consensus about race? In particular, what about our own scientific methods or protocols of observations, such as Afrocentric approaches toward the teaching and learning of race, for example, to help our communities? The question, for example, is relevant with respect to other discussions that I hear, particularly related to the Florida law and the Stop the Wrongs to Our Kids and Employees Act. From what I've heard, the discussion in many people's minds surrounding the act seems to create a great deal of tension perceived around the act and its use in the instruction of African studies or African American history and in K to 12 primarily. However, in our response, what is not necessarily missing, I will say this, what is even more significant in the discussion, given the act and the implementation as it applies to the instruction of African American history in K to 12 settings, is the scientific idea of race corroborated, by our own approaches, and thus the concern for research to then enforce the teaching and learning of African American history in both K to 12, K to 12, and college and university settings. And so, going back to the earlier statement that race is a social construct, not a biological reality, that claim is truly based on a belief. That belief comes from how you think. And there is an old adage that says, don't believe everything you think. And so, indeed, as I mentioned earlier, I want us to overcome the mental and technical challenges where we should continue to study race, and for which we continue to produce not new ideas and evidence soundly. You know, once more, race relates to a group of people who are akin to a common ancestry and have associated physical characteristics connected to a distinct land area. That definition is important because it reflects our thinking. Given the meaning, I don't. Given the meaning, I sense people, or there's a problem between the definition of race and, again, how we create or how we tend to study race. Because given the meaning, it is thought that race is created to divide people into groups ranked as superior or inferior. And how can that be? How can that be said? Um, the the definition did not say that. Therefore, that is something that is that uh, you think that is a belief that is formed that is formed and defies our attention to reality, and that reality being the definition of race. Um, in which case, then the assumption is brought forth that you assume the truth to be that race, as an aspect of the world we live in, is therefore no longer in need of claim for further, scientific clarification. And so to produce, sounder arguments, that is why I chose to mention Dr. Sheikh Antajul as an example, dealing with his study of ancient Kemet, um, or what people know as Egypt, um, and the people, you know, what emerged in tandem with his observations and his beliefs was the appropriateness of a theory, you know, and the appropriateness of a theory in accordance with a scientific method to, to justify his beliefs about race and how true it is, you know. In effect, our misconceptions about race in science today arises from the the ability to think or how we think and the appropriateness of a theory. The brother, Dr. Umar Johnson, aka Dr. Umar Ifatunde, once said that a theory is not going to solve our problems. I agree with Dr. Umar Johnson. However, as an Afrocentric Pan African psychologist, a theory is going to support our ability to solve our problems because it is the first step that arises in terms of changing our minds and then changing our behavior. So, in essence, a theory informs how we think and learn. The emphasis on a theory allows us to, make a more serious attempt to the study of race. And so the origins of our theories and how they are represented matters and ultimately need to be continually tested. I'll stop here and pick up from where I left off and in another installment. So therefore there will be a part 4 and go into race and intelligence and what exactly is a theory.